Hey, what is up, boys and girls, everybody? Good to see you on a later Wednesday evening. How are you? I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. I am Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver, coming to you from a heretofore undisclosed location somewhere beneath the swamps of Central Florida. And I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic evening. I hope that things are going just absolutely well for you tonight. Because they're going okay for me. I can't complain. I could, but no, no one would listen. Anyway, welcome to the show. And if you don't know what we do here, if you're new around these parts, let me clue you in. Come here. No, come here. Yeah, that's it. 5 nights a week, guys. 5 nights a week. I live stream about tabletop role-playing games and other nerdly pursuits that I happen to love right here on YouTube. If you want to be a part of this ongoing catastrophe that is my show, look it up. It's a word. Please click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications, and tune in. I do talk on YouTube a lot. I will run my mouth endlessly here on YouTube. I live stream over to Twitter. So if you're watching me over on Twitter right now, please give a shout out. Give me a shout out. I can see all the chats here, but if you're over on Twitter, you can't see the chat on YouTube, so you might want to come over and hang out with us on YouTube. At the very least, if you only watch me on Twitter, please hop over to YouTube and click the subscribe button also, because one thing that I don't do on Twitter very often is I will put links to, but I do not upload my interstitial videos. That is newsy videos, short form videos, things that are of interest to me. Like, for example, this coming December, if Mrs. the Dungeon Delver gets me a dice advent calendar, I'll share each door opening with you guys in little tiny videos, little short vidges, because I've been doing that for the last couple of years. And I'll link them on Twitter, but you know how stuff gets lost caught in a mush. But you will definitely miss out if you don't subscribe to the channel, and you don't want to miss out. Steve K, hello, thank you for checking in. It is good to see you, Steve K. Hello, but let me go through. Gonzalo Lira's bar tab. Hello, did not know about advent calendars. Yes, they're a real thing. The first year on the show, I actually had, and I still got the box around here. I'm pretty sure it's where you guys can't see it up over there. I had a Star Wars Lego advent calendar that I quite love. And I'm really fond of it. So we opened those the first year, and then I got the dice calendar, and then I got another dice calendar. Michael Dale Clark Witten Shin Chara Pauper Knight Lord Misfit. Jimmy Invictus. You've just commented a lot. Giant Slayer Games. Hello, and how are you? Good to see you, Giant Slayer. Daniel Rowan. Good to see you. Just got to message someone here real quick. Give them a quick shout. And that. Okay. Anyway, moving along. 1E Army Rabbit Wrangler. Absolutely. Jason Lipsky. Hello. How are you? Wonderful to see you. Rowan? I mean, what's to not? It's that simple. It's what it says on the tin. Rowan. Darth Brooks. Hello. Thorbin, howdy. But anyway, so to move along, we are hanging out tonight, and I've got a Steve K. I saw your comments over there too. Cool. All right. Well, we have our first question for the night. Now I want you guys. I'm gonna start that. I want you guys, if you have DMing, by which I mean dungeon mastering, not direct messaging. If you have dungeon mastering questions for me, tonight is the night to ask them. Now, I'm going to warn you straight up. The best way I can tell you how to dungeon master is the way I dungeon master. That may not be the best way for you. So unless you're asking me a question, we can go to the rules for. If you're asking, like, how would you do this? Like, for example, the question that we have queued up first, which I will get to in just a second. Then I will, I can only give you the best answer that I can give you. But I want to talk about dungeon mastering for just a minute. And I guess the first thing that I want to mention is the question. This came up a couple of weeks ago, and I've talked about it a little bit on the channel. I talked about it before. I talked about it when the question dropped, and I'll talk about it now. And the question is dungeon mastering an art or a science? Is dungeon mastering an art or a science? And the question is, or the answer to that question is yes. There is an art to making art out of the science that is Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons at its core is a war game. Yes, even today, it's a war game. It is pitting a set number of figures against other figures, using dice that can be adjusted for certain variables in the game. Certain figures are reduced in ability until they're no longer a threat. It is a war game. It leaves the operation of pretending to be the figure on the tabletop to players. As the years have gone on, individual nuance has gone out in favor of hard rules for how they're to be portrayed. We can argue the goodness or badness of that another time. I don't really want to argue about it. But it is a war game. It is a war game in which you can play a specific one-figure role, and you can pour as much imagination into that figure as you wish. With that said, because it is a war game, there is science, and it is the science of strategy and tactics and game theory, which I'm not going to get into game theory. That is, and I'm not talking about the Matt Pat channel, the science of game theory. That is a whole completely different level I'm getting your questions as you guys are asking them. David Brown, I saw yours. And logistics, Shin. Why can't penny people pronounce Rowan? I don't understand. Anyway, played thus, Dungeons and Dragons could be a really stale affair. It would be no more than naming your figure and playing chainmail. This figure is Mordenkainen. Okay, Mordenkainen can move 8 inches. This figure is Robilar. Robilar can ride his horse 18 inches. The exciting part comes, the art comes in and dispels those things, the staid boringness of it. The art comes in and dispels the staid and boring. And that art is created primarily by the Dungeon Master. The Dungeon Master takes science and creates art. So that hopefully answers the question. I think it's fairly straightforward that dungeon mastering is an art made from science. So, with that said, not everyone is a gifted artist in every field. I think I could ask all of you to draw a figure. If I put no constraints on you, if I told you all, draw a figure for me, something that represents a person standing there. You can be as detailed or as basic as you want. I might get a bunch of stick figures. I might get some anatomically appropriate sketches. I might get some stabs at something that's realistic. But everything in between a stick figure and a full body sketch of a person, all details, musculature, and everything, everything detailed. I can't do the latter. Okay. I'm not a good artist, but I can draw you a stick figure. I could ask someone to play something on a guitar. Someone might hold down the strings at what they think is an appropriate way and strum a single chord. Others might knock Stairway to Heaven's introduction out. And everything in between. I would tend towards the former. But there are aspects of DMing at which I am a really good artist. Some people may not be. Some people may only bring you a very plain experience. Some people may only bring you an experience where, all right, you're going down the hall. There are 4 orcs. Well, what's in this hall? A floor and walls and a ceiling and 4 orcs. The village has asked you to slay the orcs in a cave outside of town. You go there. There is a sign outside the cave that said Orcs Lair. The corridor is 10 by 10 by 10. You enter. There are orcs. What do you do? Whereas another dungeon master might make an entire epic out of that. And it just comes down to what kind of DM you got. Now, I could at least become technically proficient at drawing. I could at least become technically proficient at guitar and land somewhere in the middle of those two ends that I described for either. And a dungeon master, likewise, by honing their craft, can at the very least move into the middle ranks with a majority of everyone else. Just as there are people who can just draw, there are people who can just play guitar. I'll tell you a funny story about Steve Jobs. He was convinced that without practice he could become a piano virtuoso. So he bought I believe, a very expensive Yamaha piano, had it brought to the Apple offices, pushed into his office, and he didn't want to practice. He just thought he could do it. He couldn't. In a fit of pique, he pushed the piano out into the lobby. God help you if you went out there and you knew how to play piano and you sat down and started playing. It would infuriate him. Likewise, he thought he didn't have to take writing lessons for the brand new BMW sports bike he bought. He bought it, was fooling around in the parking lot, and blew the clutch cable. In a fit of disgust, he shoved it into the lobby next to the piano. And he would tell visitors, I have those two things there because they are examples of great design. He didn't want to practice. I don't want to practice guitar. That's why I don't play guitar. I don't want to practice drawing. So I don't draw. Your dungeon mastering can only get better, and you can only move to the center if you're willing to A, practice, and B, just keep at practice. And practice means running games. Unfortunately, unlike practice where you sit in your house and you learn how to play Twinkle Twinkle, or you learn how to draw, a human form that looks human. Practicing dungeon mastering is just something you have to do. You have to get a willing group. You have to get a group of people willing to sit in front of you and learn to put up with your mistakes. So, with that said, that is what it takes to be a good dungeon master from the 10,000 foot view. Practice, practice, practice. You may be someone who just picks it up. I have met people who just pick it up. I have met people who just pick up dungeon mastering. So, with that said, I will talk to you guys now at length about your questions. So, Jimmy Invictus got there first and said, how do I handle sessions where players are missing and if Graph Paper Architect isn't handy? If players are missing, now, this can be a little sticky. And the reason this can be a little sticky is because you may have players who want to play a one-to-one time game. Guys, I'm not going to go into in-depth on one-to-one time. But your games wind up logically at a place instead of you just push the pause button on your campaign world and then you come back to it the next week. If you're playing flex time, as people call it, a player having to not be there can be a bit more onerous, particularly if you have a lot of players who can't be there. In those circumstances, Like our dungeon here. All right. Our table's set up here. Perhaps the characters go back to a safe place and they hole up. Perhaps the players who are going to be absent said, in my absence, will you please run my character as a non-player character? All of those things are possibilities. All of those things are possibilities. And in doing that, you let the player basically, their character can continue. Now, you might ask the question, well, should I penalize them since they're not here? And if they're like, look, I had the flu, okay, I was on my back for a week. You know, I had a death in the family. I had to travel for work. Work ran late. You, as a dungeon master, you may decide, well, you know, I told you when the game was, and you're not here. Your character was an NPC, so you only get a half share of experience points. I myself don't recommend doing that if the player left you explicit instructions on how their character is to be played in their stead. But that's, you know, that's up to you as an individual DM. I usually just, they're strangely silent. They're in the back of the party. If you are doing a one-to-one time thing, those characters depart the dungeon and go back to camp. And that's where they spend a week. And that's how that's handled. Hi, Clark Whitten. We missed you too. So basically, there's one of two ways. You just have them strangely silent in the back. Not casting any spells, just covering the rear. That's how I would do it. Or, again, departing the party and returning to base. Because I'm all about that base. No, I'm not going to do that to you guys. All right, let's go to the next question. Shinjara says, what's the best way to direct message a dungeon master? Probably on email, which is scrolling down below, or over on Twitter. Haha, you thought you got me. David Brown countdown. If I were going to a con, I'm guessing you mean convention, and had some free time, how much would you prep, assuming you could wrangle enough players to play a module from an old Dragon magazine? And would you bring pre-gens? Yes, I would bring pre-gens. Prep. See, I would go another route. If you think it's just going to be a spur of the moment game, just have something like OD&D with you, some pre-gens on note cards and hand them out, and just go with that. If you're going to run a Dragon magazine module, some of the Dragon magazine modules are rather formidable. You will find that they can be just as difficult, just as treacherous, just as brain teasing, as a fully published TSR module. So I would recommend, if you know which you're going to take and which ones, plural, you might possibly run, I would absolutely do full prep for them. Treat them just like regular modules. Now, full prep, pre-gens, and then read the module through carefully so you understand it. And then proceed apace. That is what I would do. This is not a question, but it's a comment. I thought it was a good one. I check with my players on what they like, don't like, what works, and what doesn't. Even after 35 years, one needs feedback and input. Absolutely. Let me tell you, if you're Billy Joel and you go out there on stage and you decide to spring on your audience a heavy metal version of Allentown or a ska punk version of Goodnight Saigon or a bluesy country folk version of You May Be Right, and the audience boos him, well, he can judge pretty well that they don't like it and not to do that again. Yes, Jorge, those Dragon Magazine modules were included in the magazine usually. Then when they got Dungeon Magazine going, you saw much fewer actual dungeon adventures. It was like many dungeons a month in Dungeon Magazine. Gonzalo Lira's Bar Tab asks, I've watched these 4 or 5 of my S-Series videos, but I have either missed or not seen encumbrance or movement distance being mentioned. Yes, I absolutely do. I absolutely use... Oh, hey, Lord Honor. I absolutely, unquestionably, unswervingly use the encumbrance rules and movement distance rules. Absolutely. Otherwise, you get, I'm going to run down into the next cave and I'm going to pick up all the bags of gold and then run back. Always use encumbrance. Always use movement rules. Even if you're theater of the mind, you, the dungeon master, should at least have a sketch in your head of what your dungeon looks like, about how long it is. Plus, it tells you how often to check for wandering monsters. Hello, Lord Otter. David Brown has 200 Dragon magazines. My wife wants them recycled. I'm sure you're going to miss her. Always encumbrance rules, though, guys. Always encumbrance rules. And if the party's worried about it, they can hire bearers to carry stuff out for them until such time as they are lucky enough to acquire a bag of holding. I mean, especially if you've got low digit, like if you got Dragon magazine when it was the Dragon, like 1, 2, 3, like that. Yeah, don't get rid of those. Yeah, the archive CD set, it occupies an interesting place. For a long time, before context search in Windows was that great, its search engine was actually really nice. Just getting it to run on anything past 16-bit iterations of Windows was kind of a pain in the, or 32-bit. Does anyone take goats? I don't necessarily. I don't encourage or discourage my players to do any particular solution. Gonzalo asks, how often do I get a player able to use movement to a lot of combat advantage, elves and rangers? A player is welcome to play an elf and get that silent, unsurprised, or difficult to surprise movement ability. Rangers likewise. Rangers, of course, there are qualifications to be a ranger. So... And I use 4 dice 6 discard lowest. Let's see if we can do a ranger real quick. Do you guys want to see if we can make ranger quals real quick? Let's see if we can do that. See if it'll pop up. Let's see. Crafty Matt says, I started my RPG hobby off being a bearer for sixth graders when I was in third grade. Carried the torches and the loot. I was told I was a very important part of... Aww. What are good ways to tax gold from players that are too rich? This is a good one. I'll get to the... we'll see if we can get to the ranger rolling, because you guys are asking... good questions here. Well, one thing you can do, Darth, is if players are pulling coins out of dungeons, they could be of ancient variety. That maybe aren't recognized. Maybe they have an out of favor king or priest or motto or coat of arms stamped on them, and are therefore not favored by certain merchants or certain banks. So I would say that I would use I would just use the tried and true method of it costs you X to enter town, it costs you X to exit town. If you're obviously of means, there are always bribes to be paid. And remember, 100 gold pieces per level, per month, per character for upkeep. Parties, the occasional bribe, regular amounts of food and drink, having one's clothes and armor mended to high standards. That's what you gotta keep in mind. And I know that's not a lot, right? I mean, when you have characters, when you have characters offing a dragon and they get 80,000 gold pieces, right? But also remember, training costs money. Training costs money. There's going to be level drains. Is the party going to seek out that high level cleric to have restoration cast on them? You can send thieves after them. I think part of the mistake, the reason you see such stinginess with treasure, and that is one thing, as Monty Hall on the end of character powers, as I think everything after first edition AD&D is, my God, they were stingy with treasure. But I think that stems from DMs not understanding that they need to set up that's excellent. That's excellent, Darth. They need to set up a system of taxation, of money exchange. They need to remember that it costs money to levels. When they threw that out, they broke so much of Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, the characters can buy anything they want. Are you charging them to level? No. Shut up. A disenchanter from the Fiend Folio. That's right, David Brown. But and it's perfectly cromulent to rob them. Remember, Fafhrd and Grey Mouser got robbed more than once. You're motivated by stuff. You're not motivated by stuff. You like experiences. Hey, north of the Rockies, thank you. Thank you so much. I can believe that, north of the Rockies. And thank you for the super chat. All right, so you guys want a ranger. Let's see if I can do this. Need a couple 13s. Strength and int minimum of 13. Wisdom and con minimum of 14. We're going to do 4 die 6 arranged to taste. So it's going to roll on the screen. There we go. First roll is a 14. Isn't there a charisma minimum too? I know paladins have to have a 17, but All right, here we go. Hey, 105 people watching. Welcome, welcome, one and all. If you're tuning in from over on Twitter, please pop in and say hi. 18. Woohoo! We got to drop one, though. Actually, got to drop one from our other one as well. So that 18 becomes a 15. We're going to have to discard that first one because... All right, so 15... because I didn't see what all the numbers were on it. All right, so we got a 15. Oof, that's a 9. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. And roll. Oh, that's not bad. That's a 14. Well, 13. Oh, that is a 10. We may not get our Ranger, guys. We may not even get a Gygax mandated minimum of 15 and 2 stats here. That's an 11. I don't think we're going to make it, guys. And that is a 13. So no, we couldn't make a Ranger. We could not make a Ranger. Alas, alack, no Ranger tonight. But you could still play an elf and still get those advantages. I'm not rolling initiative against player. Yeah, exactly. So anyhow, but to go back, yeah, that is that is perfectly acceptable for players to do that if they're playing an elf or if they got the stats for a Ranger. Campaigns and Conquest hates keyboards. I'm so sorry. Do you type with the on-screen keyboard, clicking on the mouse on the letter? So keep the questions coming, guys. Keep the question coming. And thank you again for the super north of the Rockies. Was it north of the Rockers? Let's see. What other wisdom can I impart to you? Oh, and I've talked about this before. And Kabuki this is going to make Kabuki so mad. She's going to want to not be on the show next week. So I have to be careful because otherwise she won't show up next week. But be an adversarial DM. Be an adversarial DM. I talked a little bit about this last night. Let me tell you what being an adversarial DM is all about. Being an adversarial DM means I will come back to your question because I want to complete this thought. Questions. Being an adversarial DM means basically making it just as hard as it needs to be on the player characters to succeed. Listen. Player characters, that's right, C64 forever, Kabuki. Player characters will find the most interesting and hilarious ways to off themselves. Being an adversarial DM is not about coming up with new and unusual ways to destroy characters. They can do it on their own. The tricky part is keeping them alive. Being an adversarial DM does not mean making your campaign too hard. It means making it just hard enough so that when they succeed, even if it's only one of the characters who began the campaign and everybody else has been through multiple characters, then you have given the players a real rush. Being an adversarial DM means cursing the thoroughness of the players. And yet in here, you're cheering them on. Like, yes, they found it. I didn't have to drop any hints. I didn't have to drop any breadcrumbs. They cast gust of wind through a bottle of holy water. It washed the dust of disappearance off of the idol's face. And the player characters can see the giant gemstones now. In your head, inside. Outside, you're saying, fine. All right. You throw the vial of holy water up into the gust of wind. It sprays out as a mist, lands on the demon's face. You can now see a couple of gems. Collect your gems. We don't have all night, guys. Let's go. But inside, you're cheering for him, guys. And players, Kabuki, I'm looking at you. I'm getting your questions, guys. Thank you, Darth. Yes, please do hit your like buttons. Yes, Daniel, presenting you into exciting challenges. But if you play a game of chess or poker or checkers or Stratego, Monopoly, whatever, against someone who you know is really good at it, or at the very least they hold all the cards in their hands, and they have a reverse poker face like, I guess we'll go down this hall, and the DM's like, or, okay, I'll roll to hit you behind the screen, nat 20. Oh, I should have rolled it out there, but, you pick up the dice real quick. I rolled a 1 back here. You're fine. You didn't get hit. You are cheating the players. As a player, would you rather steamroll me, Bill Sylvie, the Dungeon Delver, and blow through my fiendishly plotted out death traps and leave me just sitting there looking at my hands, looking out at the table, going, it was all for nothing. You coin-grubbing bastards, it was all for nothing. And you're high-fiving each other. Do you want me to hand it to you, or do you want to take it from me? You want to play to the hilt, and you want to be played to the hilt, and you absolutely, positively want that experience. And Dungeon Masters, you want to give that experience. Don't soft pedal your game. Be aggressive. Be adversarial. Now, with that said, on a personal level, on an interpersonal level, and I cannot emphasize this enough, don't be a dick about it. You don't have to get in somebody's face and tell them they suck and tell them they're bad at Dungeons and Dragons and you're the DM and you won Dungeons and Dragons and it was advanced. It is all about a player winning the day and feeling like they really beat the crap out of the DM. Or even if they've survived by the skin of their teeth, that they'll live to fight another day. We made it out of Bill Sylvie's Castle Delve. Ho ho! Let me tell you what. We had 2 spells left: Create Water or Cone of Cold. There's a white dragon coming down the tunnel behind us, guys. Player asks the DM, we got to get across this crevasse. How many rounds have we got? Well, I mean, you got 2 rounds and it'll be here. Can I cast Create Water and then we hit it with Cone of Cold for an ice bridge? Fine. You know? You cheer that on. You cheer that on. You don't tell them, okay, and then take it away from them at the end. You let those player characters Grimsby the whole dungeon if you want. But don't give them a break. If they fail, they're wiped out. That's the way it goes. Their loot goes into the White Dragon's claws. That's what adversarial DMing means to me, and I absolutely recommend you do it like that. Rocks fall, everybody gonna die. You touch the Sphere of Annihilation in the Tomb of Horrors, that thing is, I mean, it's practically a tourist attraction. You ought to know not to do that. Shoop, you're gone. David Brown, I'm a microaggressor DM. I'm not gonna launch into microaggressive DMing because I'll get canceled. All right, let's get back to some questions. So Gonzalo Lira's bar tab asked, I love that username, asks me, what is my most useful 1E supplement? Gonzalo, bouncing that ball back to you. Putting it out, pulling it back in. What do you mean by supplement? Is supplement a non-rule book? And what do you consider a rule book? Right now, off the top of my head, I would have to say the most immediately useful on any given Sunday is Rogue's Gallery. Rogue's Gallery is chock-a-block full of non-player characters and some high-level monsters that require some dicing up by the DM. That is rolling dice, not chopping into little cubes. Yeah. Campaign and conquest. So say we all, buddy. So say we all. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Daniel Rowan says, how do I feel about ability scores of 5 or lower in X and the player can only be Y? That's the way the cookie crumbles. That's how it goes. There are suggestions in the Dungeon Master's Guide about retiring hopeless characters, but if a character is like 18, they're rolling it out in front of you. 18, 18, 18, 18, 18, 5. After discarding the lowest. Well, you rolls the dice and you takes your chances. David Brown. I DM live streams on YouTube. What was the first technology I used to run games online? I started, so this goes all the way back to the early 90s when I was just discovering I'm sorry, I just aged 25 years. I was going to say when I was discovering the Usenet. When I was discovering Usenet and IRC, not MIRC, IRC, FTP, Archie Search, Finger Files, Gopher, Waze, WAIS. I ran a game via online live chat through a dial-up BBS system, multi-line dial-up BBS system. This would have been 1990 or 91 at the latest. Now, my sister's husband borrowed for many years my copy of Star Frontiers. And he ran a fairly successful Star Frontiers door on his Atari 800 based dial-up BBS. And he was the dungeon master, or the referee, the game master. And he would run Alpha Dawn regularly for groups. I don't know how good or how bad it was. Now, talking about the broadband internet days, I would say we tried Skype. We tried early Skype, Roll20. We've done Roll20 maps and Steam audio. I've never played just text only. We've tried Facebook Messenger for a little while. That was pretty clunky and unwieldy. I am marking your questions. I've heard good things about Tabletop Simulator. So I hope that answers your question, James Brown. And Crafty Matt, the craftiest of Matts. Craft instant mac and cheese. Crafty Matt asks, how do I introduce the idea of henchmen, hirelings, and multiple player characters without the players losing their minds? So most of those, because they are independent from the group. Let me tell you a story about my Monday night game. At its peak, my Monday night game was over 40 individuals, 15 players. That was only for a few weeks, I should point out. 15 players, and many hirelings. They had cavalry, they had heavy foot, they had light foot, they had bearers and drovers for their carts, animal handlers for their horses, a couple of carpenters to keep up their cabin that they built near Castle Greyhawk. Different groups of light and heavy foot would go in with them. They would rotate them out. I run all of them because they are non-player characters. The players don't run them. I run them. And that's how I keep the players from losing their minds. Let's see. All right. I hope I'm not missing anyone. Jack Neller asks, what is the best 1 ETSR module to run at a convention that would fit easiest in a 4-hour block? As long as everyone has come to play, I would recommend A1. It's a sweet spot for character levels 4 to 7, and if you use the tournament version of the map, the party should get through a pretty big chunk of it. Failing that, let me recommend something you can do. Take a specific section I'm thinking of Keep on the Borderlands and call it the Temple of Evil Chaos. It's not that many rooms in area J, the Temple of K rather, the Temple of Evil Chaos. However, it's enough that if you're hitting the party with random encounters and they're being safe and cautious, it should take about that long to run. And I know because I've done that. So I hope that answers your question. 1E Dragons versus 2E Dragons, thoughts and feeling. 1E always. I prefer. I know it's called Dungeons and Dragons. I prefer dragons to be approachable. I don't buy into this. They're bigger than a 747 and godlike, and you should never deign to approach a dragon, good or bad, that they're all neutral and haughty and above humanity. Yes, it says Dungeons and Dragons on it, but it also says dungeons on it. Does that mean you shouldn't enter a dungeon? Of course not. Of course not. I like dragons that are frangible. You're quite welcome, Jack. Part of U1 or L2? Maybe. Good call, Jason. The scales did creep. They creeped pretty severely. I think we're all caught up on questions. If you guys have more questions, please ask them. A4 in 4 hours? Maybe. In 4 hours, maybe. Excellent, Rob. That's excellent. I didn't mean when I was kind of thinking about A4 to almost sounding like Tucker Carlson. We asked the Biden administration. Why, in the dungeons of the slave lords, was so hard? We investigated. Here's what we found out. How many holes in a crumpet? The standard crumpet has approximately 468 per side. Why do people hate Greyhawk Wars so much? Campaigns and Conquest asks. Daniel Rowan's got a question above that. But I started asking Campaigns and Conquest first, so I'm gonna do that. Why do people hate Greyhawk Wars so much? Everybody has their idealized Greyhawk. I know a lot of people who are very much into living Greyhawk and things that happen. Aleppo, Daniel. Things that happened in living Greyhawk, they very much like. I know people whose first introduction to Greyhawk was Carl Sargent's From the Ashes, Die Vecna Die, which is just German for the Vecna V. Unlike 40K and Battletech and just about everything else, I like my Greyhawk timeline to stay fixed. I don't like to be pushed forward. And I think people saw that as a non-Gygaxian drive to this. No, Greyhawk is now a unified, heavily lorified setting, and you must follow these things. Like Gorna was destroyed by the giant incursions. It's assumed that player characters never came along to stop the giants, and that humanoids and giants destroyed Gorna, and Duke Owen went insane. That the Pomarge grew and grew and grew until the wild coast itself is just uninhabitable, so on and etc. That Ayuz has absorbed and expanded and is an existential threat, and plus it makes some nonsensical decisions as well, I'm told. So Yes, exactly. John Miller, you hit the nail on the head. It got rid of many kingdoms and made it a lot more grimdark, and it's not for me. Is it Damascus? Oh, sorry, Damascus. So that's my question as to why people hate the Greyhawk Wars so much. Beside a red dragon, what type makes sense in a well, literally depending on the climb, most dragons. You know what? Let's grab our monster manual, our monster manual 1, and have a quick gander. And let's look at dragons a little bit, shall we? The Biden administration told us there were only a few types of dragons that could go in dungeons. We investigated. Here's what we found out. All right, so let's take a look at dragons. And I'll put this up on the screen. Super chat if anyone wants to hear Alex Jones tonight, by the way. My throat hurts like hell, but I need the money. Boy, there's a snippable comment, huh? All right, so let's take a look at dragons here. All right, we'll start at the top, just going in alphabetical order. Let's go with black dragons first. I can't move that over. It's just split over 2 screens. The black dragon is typically found in miasmal swamps or marshes, although they also inhabit subterranean layers as well, for black dragons always seek lair in deep, dark caves. Hey-oh, Imperial Ramblings. Blue dragons. Blue dragons typically prefer deserts and lands. Sorry, good Lord, that's at a weird angle. Deserts and arid lands. Like others of their kind, their lair is always some vast cave or underground cavern. That's 2 in a dungeon. Brass dragons, sandy desert regions whose cavernous lairs are found therein. So far, brass, black, and blue dragons. Bronze dragons prefer to dwell in subterranean lairs near substantial bodies of water. Tiamat is in hell. You don't get much more underground dungeon than that. Copper dragons prefer to inherit arid rocky regions, liking warmer climes to locate their cavern or cave lairs. Gold dragons. They can dwell in any clime, but their lairs are always of solid stone, whether a cave or castle. The green dragon. Underground lairs in or near woods or forests of the bleak or wilder sort possible. Bahamut is a god. He lives in the clouds. Red dragons. Great hills or mountainous regions. As with most others of this species, they make their lair in subterranean caves and similar places. Silver dragons select mountain peaks, clouds, and similar locales in which to establish their abode. So, silver dragons so far are the only ones that are not specifically indicated as living in caves. White dragons. They favor chilly or cold regions. They lair in icy caves or deep subterranean places. Although not as intelligent as most other dragons, they are as evil and greedy as any. And we're not told if the dragon lives underground or above ground. The dragon turtle is the last dragon kin. I suppose we could look at the wyvern if you guys wanted, but giant lizards, fire lizards, or false dragons are they will dwell underground also. No, continuing timeline in Greyhawk is not popular. They just live in lakes and seas. But I would imagine they have a cave lair, or maybe it's just at the bottom of a very deep lake. Let's see about wyverns. I think wyverns just live out in the wild. I don't think we have a specific entry, or locale rather, for wyverns. They're distantly related to dragons. Oh, no, there we go. These monsters inhabit places favored by dragons, tangled forests, great caverns, and the like. And just for completeness, we'll look at a couple of other things too. Lizard. I mean, a subterranean lizard. It says it on the tin. I don't think we need to worry about that. I really need to get rid of Adobe on this machine. Let's see. They resemble red dragons, are sometimes called false dragons. They are found in subterranean lairs, coming forth every fortnight or so to hunt. Minotaur lizards. Doesn't say that they're underground, subterranean. Obviously, giant prefer marshes and swamps, but it doesn't say they're underground. I think Kabuki Kid is a kimono dragon. And the other thing I was going to look at, is the Chimera. I think they're sufficiently dragon enough like that we can look at their locales too. The Chimera. We're not given a locale for the Chimera. The Chimera combines the features of three creatures in a monstrous manner. Its hindquarters are those of a huge goat. Its foreparts are those of a lion. Its body sports dragon wings, and it has three large heads. It can claw with its forelegs. Its goat head is armed with two long horns. Its lion head has powerful jaws and sharp teeth, and its dragon head is likewise equipped. If a chimera desires, the dragon's head can breathe fire with a range of 5 inches, causing 3 to 24 points. Saving throw adaptable. Chimerae speak a very limited form of red dragon. And then we just have a description of what they're like. I love Chimerae. I really do. Feminine, demure dragon serving noodles. I better not. Moving right along. And there are 124 people watching. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. I greatly appreciate it. If you haven't already, please click the subscribe button and please click the bell icon for notifications. The best replacement for Adobe? I'm fixing to find out. The Chimera has a Travelin' Jones. The Chimera has a Tom Jones. Yes, early Chimera version from Myth had a snake head for a tail. I have seen some renditions of the Chimera that have a scorpion-like tail. I've seen some manticores with a scorpion-like tail. Replaced Adobe with Chimera. I love it. He's a rambling guy. Okay, here's a question. Bahamut spends quarter of a time on the prime material plane. Is he continually flitting in and out of reality 1/4 of every second? I think he's just taking a quarter of the year. He takes a sabbatical every year. I don't think he's blinking in and out of existence. I mean, you could certainly run it like that. The Biden administration tells us Bahamut is blinking in and out of existence every quarter second. We investigated. Here's what we found out. It's not unusual to find a chimera in the desert. When Lisa visits, I should ask her to pronounce chimera. Hello, I'm Lisa. Chimera. She'll She'll mail me a skull or something. David Brown is irritated. How slow what is, my friend? Peter North's, I'm not going to say that. You can't believe anything Biden said. It's a joke because sometimes my voice cracks like Tucker's. I'm not discussing politics on the show. It's all fun here. It's not unusual for Tom Jones to be here. Da-da-da-da. Let's see. I just don't want to have missed any questions, any comments, criticisms. So that's for your Bahamut question. And Daniel, I hope that answered your question about dragons. Attack of the Welshman, Sylvie style. Yeah. Just no, none of my distaff fans, please don't throw your underwear at me because it would just land on the back of your computer or your tablet or TV if you're watching me there, or God forbid your mobile phone if you're on the train. No, I can't do that vocal fry. I cannot do that Sammy vocal fry. Not even as a joke. Do the Carlton? This is Carlton, your doorman. Not really. Okay, Jack asks an important question, a serious Dungeons and Dragons question. Is Bahamut is a god? Does he get the power, abilities, and weaknesses thereof, minor or major? We'll have to go to deities and demigods for that. I would say, okay, here's what I would suggest. That's now stuck to your wall, Wave of Mutilation. We'll have to look at maneuverability classes and then compare them to speed classes, campaigns and conquest, but I'll come back to you. Anyway, so let's look at deities and demigods. Hopefully I have a PDF here. Otherwise, I got to stand up and grab it off the shelf. See, folks, let me explain something to you. This is what you guys get from me show to show is pretty standard. For me, you might not get this level of I'll just stop and do a thing for you guys on another show. I sit here, you throw peanuts at me. So let's just zip down here real quick. And we'll rotate our one allowed rotation and look for Bahamut on the deity list. So let's see. Greek. Scroll all the way up to the top. Probably going to be a non-human if I had to wager a guess. So there's Cthulhu, Chinese, Indian, Japanese, Melnibonean, Nawan, non-human. So I don't see Bahamut there. Nor do I see Tiamat. Is there a miscellaneous? There is not. So let's see. Got to run it all the way around because the good people at, I did it too many times. The good people at Adobe said the ability to flip pages is a premium ability. And Bahamut is not listed in this book. He's not. Neither is Tiamat, then, I can almost guarantee. Nope. Tiamat's not either. So, there's your question. I would go with, Jack, I would have to go with No, you don't give them the abilities. So, oh, is she in Sumerian? Did I miss that? Is she in Sumerian? She does get a mention under Marduk, but only as something that Marduk has fought. So Daniel Rowan asks, "What is my favorite mythos in deities and demigods?" I'm just gonna stop sharing that. What is my favorite mythos and deity? Okay, so for pure coolness sake, it's the Cthulhu mythos. For utility in a D&D game, for me, it is a tie between the Nawan mythos and the Melnibonean mythos. Those are the most immediately portable into a bog standard AD&D game. It's like if you look at the Babylonian mythos, like it takes that's a lot of DM work you got to have going on. That's a lot of DM work you got to have going on. And Sandy Peterson has been on the show before. Let me tell you guys about the story that Sandy told us. And I want to answer Campaign and Conquest question after I tell you this. Hey, Christopher Sims. Sandy Peterson. So we all know, I've told you guys time and again about the unexpurgated deities and demigods and how the Bloom brothers made TSR stop using the Chaosium supplied authorized mythos. It had nothing to do with Chaosium. Chaosium, those guys, Greg Stafford, they were over the moon that people could attack, that could have Elric in their D&D games and could fight Azathoth. They thought that was just the coolest thing in the world, and they were completely okay with it. It was the Bloom brothers within TSR who said, we're not advertising other people's material in our games. But something else they did, which I did not know until Sandy told us this story. Fritz Leiber had signed an agreement with Chaosium to do a Fafhrd and Grey Mouser stuff at Chaosium. He told Jim he could use all the Fafhrd and Grey Mouser and stuff he wanted at TSR. The Blooms reached out. A couple of pieces of work. The Blooms reached out to Greg Stafford at Chaosium and said, hey, if you want to sue Fritz Leiber, we'll help you do that. And then that way you can have all of his stuff for free. You won't have to pay him. As the Bloom brothers. Great people. You know, for years, I was on the verge of saying, you know what? I wasn't in the room. I have no dog in the fight. I know it eventually led to some tough times for Gary. But why get wind up about it? Business is business. That's some fuckery right there. I mean, okay, so let's get back to Campaign and Conquest. Which dragon is the best dog fighter? For that, we need the Dungeon Master's Guide. Oh ho, you thought you would just ask a funny question of me, did you? I'm going to fix you. All right. So, let's dive into this. because you guys asked. Let's dive into this. Let me add this again. Now we're going to have to look at two different books. And see which maneuverability class plus speed. Because boys and girls, you can be as agile as you want in a Cessna. You're going to get blown out of the sky by an F-15. He might not even have to go guns on you. Literally just fly within like 50 feet of you, go vertical and hit the afterburners. It will drive you into the earth or cause you to spin out of control. Okay. So Class A creatures, this is on page 50 of the Dungeon Master Guide, can turn 180 degrees per round. That is all the way back around, and requires one segment to reach full airspeed. Creature requires one segment to come to a full stop in the air and can hover in place. Class A creatures have total and almost instantaneous control of their movements. Examples: Jinn, air elementals, aerial servants, and Coatl. Class B, 120 per round, 6 segments to reach airspeed, 5 segments to come to a full stop, and can hover in place. The fly spell, sprites, sylphs, giant wasps, and Kirin. Class C can turn at 90 per round and require 1 round to reach full airspeed. Carpet or wings of flying, gargoyles, harpies, pegasi, lamassu, and shadu. D, 60 per round, require 2 rounds to reach full airspeed. Pteranodons, sphinxes, mounted pegasi. And E, 30 degrees per round, 4 rounds to reach airspeed. Dragons, rocks, and wyverns. So we don't have a listing yet. So let's take a look at dragon speeds. Again, I'd have made a note if I had known we were going to come back to dragons. The black dragon, aerial movement, 24 inches. The blue dragon, aerial movement, 24 inches. The brass dragon, aerial movement, 24 inches. The bronze dragon, aerial movement, 24 inches. Tiamat, aerial movement, 18 inches. A somewhat poorer dogfighter. Copper dragon, 24 inches. Gold dragon, 30 inches. Gold dragons are so far leading their peers. The green dragon, 24 inches. The platinum dragon, 30 inches, tied with the gold. The red dragon, 24 inches. A silver dragon, 24 inches. And a white dragon, 30 inches. So your top gunniest dragons are gold, platinum, and white. Gold, platinum, and white are quickest on the wing, but they all have the same acceleration and turning radius. So it comes down to pure speed. Those are your Top Gun dragons. Good night, Nordic. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. Yes, Tiamat's a chunkster. So now you know. And now I know as well. We asked the Dungeon Delver which dragon was the most maneuverable. We investigated. Here's what we found out. Yeah, she's giant. Newer edition Street Dragons is big dumb lizards with breath weapons. How would I run a dragon as DM to strike fear into my players' hearts? So here's the thing. By dint of dice. Take care of the Wheeling Dragon. By the way, the Wheeling Dragon is maneuverability class A. I just want to point that out. Damn, do these heads make me look slow? So newer edition Street Dragons is big dumb lizards with breath weapons. First of all, there is a chance they can cast spells. Second of all, you know what? Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at the things that most DMs tend to overlook. Let's look at dragon abilities. First of all dragons see equally well in daylight or darkness, infravision 60 feet. They have excellent sight, smell, and hearing because of these keen senses. Dragons are able to detect hidden or invisible creatures within 10 feet per age level. An ancient dragon can detect your invisibility or even your odor out to 80 feet. Indoors. It's 80 yards out of doors. They develop the power to panic enemies as they mature. At adult age and older, they radiate a powerful aura which causes a fear reaction when a dragon flies overhead or charges. All creatures under 1 hit die, as well as non-carnivorous creatures of any sort, which are not trained for warfare or basically not fearless or aggressive, will flee in panic. Such route will be made at fastest speed possible, and it will continue for 4 to 24 turns. Now note, that says not trained for warfare. Commoners are going to run. Fighting men are going to stand. They're trained for warfare. Creatures with fewer than 3 hit dice must save versus magic or be paralyzed with fear or panic as above. So now your fighting men, your troops, well, they may bolter or just stand stock still. Creatures with 3 or more hit dice will fight at -1 on their hit dice unless they also save versus magic. Creatures with 6 or more automatically disregard the aura effect, and the aura changes as they age. It's not as powerful, so at adult, old, and very old, you get +5, +3, and +1 to your saving throws. And they can speak and employ spells. And let's note, encountering multiple dragons. If 2 or more dragons are encountered outside the lair, it will be a mated pair if 2 are encountered and subadults if 3 or more are encountered. If 2 or more dragons are encountered in their lair, it will always be a mated pair with their young if applicable. Mated pairs are always 5th through 8th age category. Any young in lair are eggs, 10% chance, or very young, 90% chance. If young dragons are attacked, both adults will automatically breathe and then melee to bite, gaining a ferocity bonus of +2 to hit and +1, +3 in clawing, biting damage. If either of the mated pair are attacked, the above dragon will rush to its defense, gaining the ferocity bonus as stated unless it is attacked simultaneously. This also does not account for fear effect or for spell effects. Because remember, they can cast spells also. Let's see. Spell use. Where is it? Subduing, like this is dual. Dragons saving throws. They have great saving throws. I think it varies by dragon. Here we go. Blue dragons, which are able to use spells, do so as follow. For each stage of maturity, first through third, they gain a first level spell. Thus, an ancient blue dragon would have 3 first level, 3 second, and 2 third level spells. Determine all spells randomly. If the same spell is rolled twice, the dragon is able to use the spell twice per day. So, we have fear. We have ferocity if they're attacked, or their mate or their young are attacked. And we have spells. We have preternaturally greater senses. And they are going to set up and create a sort of, I would say, evil dragons will probably have servants. You know, the blue dragon may command a small army of orcs to do its bidding, bring it food in the form of captives. Guard its treasure when it's away. Guard its eggs, so on, etc. So make sure you give them cunning. You look at their intelligences. Even green dragons with low intelligence are going to have some kind of low cunning. They're not just going to stake out a cave and put up a sign that says Dragon's Lair within. Good night, Shinjara. No, there was a donkey with charm in Shrek, David Brown. So that is what I would recommend, Crafty, and I hope that helps. I hope that helps. I hope you are paying attention. But regarding dragons, the dice have almost always dictated that the party has encountered good dragons. I've had gold dragons, silver dragons, brass dragons, and bronze dragons show up. I had Eddie Murphy's album back in the 80s, Jorge, so yeah. But I with all of this said, again, I don't like the idea of dragons being these unassailable demigods. At the end of the day, they are treasure hoarding lizards. You know, they have their weaknesses. They have hit dice. They have hit points for a reason. They can be overcome and they can be slain. By the way, take note. Newbies to AD&D, Dungeon Masters specifically, take note of something. Dragon breath weapons, unlike basic, while they are based on the hit points of the dragon, they are based on the total hit points of the dragon, not its hit points at the moment. The huge ancient red dragon, whether it has 88 or 1 hit point, will still breathe for 88 points of damage if you don't make your save, and even then, you're still going to take 44. So keep that in mind as a DM. Basic will reduce it, like, oh, it's only got 1 hit point, it's only breathing for 1 point of damage. AD&D doesn't do that, and I like that. I quite like it. Well, I mean, and you do you, Dice Tales. You know, I don't get super caught up in too many super dragons and that sort of thing. I don't. That is a wicked amount. 88 breath points is, the Hard, as I call him, huge ancient red dragon, Hard. Add spells, add a 36-point bite attack. Now I can't I can't really tell the story with the same aplomb. Gary created the multicolored dragons. I know, look, everybody and their brother has a story about how Gary didn't really like The Lord of the Rings. He thought it was overblown. He didn't like Tolkien's work. He preferred Howard, yada, yada, yada. Gary wrote letters to Tolkien fan magazines in the 60s and 70s. The classic D&D dragons, the black, blue, white, green, red, silver, gold, copper, bronze. Those dragon scale colors, for lack of a better term, Gary suggested those as part of fan fiction for The Lord of the Rings. Paul Stormberg tells the story better than I do. But that is the gist of it. You guys out there talking about the C-47? Yes, the C-47 was Puff the Magic Dragon. Believe it or not, the C-47 gets a lot of the press, but it was really the C-119. The C-119 was the first gunship, and I think it was just called the C-119 Dragon, and then they said, when the C-47 took it up, the AC-47, that became Puff the Magic Dragon, and the AC-130, which soldiers on today, became the Spectre, AC-130 Spectre family. Yeah, I haven't dug too much into the Isn't there like a mountain range in Middle Earth that is essentially the body of one of the legendary dragons of the early time? Why no Electrum Dragon? No love for the Electrum out there? Dungeon Minister, you see, when a gold dragon and a silver dragon love each other very, very much, they go into their special mommy and daddy gold dragon cave and have a special hug with each other. Should I keep going? I don't know. Okay, so I understand why they got an AC-130 like they got an AC-130 these days. I don't think it's nearly as cool as it used to be. When it was like the AC-130H, and it was 3 20-millimeter Vulcans, the double 40-millimeter Bofors, and the 105, that was truly badass. And then they like dropped one of the 20 mics and went up to 2 25-millimeter. And then they said, okay, well, our next iteration, our next builds, we're going to drop this, that, and that. And now it's like it has one autocannon and the semi-automatic 105, and the rest of it is missiles. Okay, I guess. No, the 105 does not. The 105 just has standard HE rounds. Yeah, Dungeon Minister. Yeah, a whole family. That's what I was thinking of, Jimmy Invictus. Thank you. Yes, Daniel Rowan, a special hug. With that said, we lost an AC-130 in Iraq back all the way in 1991 because it was still puttering around after the sun came up. And I don't know what the exact circumstances were, but it got pranged by an Iraqi Sam, and that was all she wrote. Cat people in D&D sucks or doesn't suck. I don't like okay, I don't like them in first edition AD&D. I know there's Rakasta. Well, as player characters, I don't like them at all. I don't care what edition of D&D you're playing. I don't want them. But they're Tabaxi in first edition, and there's also Rakshasha. In basic D&D, there are the Rakasta. I don't know what they did in 2E, and I don't care. Or in 3E, I don't care. But that's 3 cat people. I guess technically a were tiger would sort of count, maybe. I don't know. Cats have no lips, I guess. Hey, RRTNZ, thank you. Back in your RPG days, you were very much into superhero RPGs. What's my experience? Lots of Hero System. We've talked about Hero System here on the show before. I think Hero System is a fine tabletop RPG. It is 180 degrees around from any form of Dungeons and Dragons. So I would put it as a game where if you said, okay, 6 months, no D&D, no, like, but chainmail's okay, right? Wink, wink, wink. No, no D&D, but you can have a book that will let you play whatever system you wanted. Hero would be my go-to. I could run some fantasy with Hero. I can make it work. I had a bunch of Rakshashas show up in my AD&D campaign. Anyway, I hope that answers your question. Although I will say, I know a lot of my fellow D&D players are very into phase rip. I never played MSH and done phase rip. Villains and Vigilantes is one from, who was Villains and Vigilantes? I think Villains and Vigilantes was Fantasy Games Unlimited. Never played that one either. And whatever Mayfair ran the DC Heroes system on. No, the only one I have done is Hero System. And I've run Hero System for just about any other system, but for superheroes, we've done both Champions Universe and we've done Marvel with it, because it's just so good at modeling everything. So anyway, so let's see. When you pasted Wolf Blizzard's head on a dire wolf, you need to step back a little bit. Crafty Mint, there's A10 is government gave for a minute. Yeah, the A10 was pretty fierce. The A10 was pretty fierce. And I say was, the A10 cannot survive in a dense surface to air environment or contested airspace. It can't. It is really good at what it does. If Seed has done the suppression of enemy air defenses, has suppressed enemy air defenses, I mean, The A-10 did fantastic in Iraq and Afghanistan because that's the environment it was designed to operate in. That is the exact environment. People think, it's a tank killer. It's not. It's not. The desire for what the A-10 is came out of requirements that were seen in Vietnam. The A-10 is designed as a coin CAS aircraft. Counterinsurgency close air support. That big 30 millimeter gun, the tank killer, it can't shoot through tanks. You can't saw a T-62 in half with it. I mean, there's famous footage of A-10s just hosing down M48s on the range. And I've talked to A-10 pilots who've said, I was there, I did that. We drove out to the range after our passes. And even on M48s and M60s from top attack, it was dense. Now, trucks, light armored vehicles, bunkers, guys exposed, absolutely. But, I mean, its primary standoff anti-tank weapon would have been the Maverick, not the gun. Good night, Dice Tales. So, let's see. NZ asks again. RRTNZ, rather, asks again. Last question. Sorry if this is old ground. What's my issue with Palladium systems? You love them so... Okay. So, Palladium, I've not looked that close at the mechanics. I think they're kind of janky. My biggest problem is Kevin Simbadia, however you pronounce it, is he's not a nice guy. And it has nothing to do with him defending his IP. I think there's good ways to defend your IP. I think there's bad ways to defend your IP. And Kevin has chosen the bad way, but it is his IP to defend. I'm marking your question, campaigns. Anyway, so to get back, I don't think Palladium was good stewardship for Robotech / Macross, but I also don't think Harmony Gold was good stewardship of Macross. I think Robotech being 3 completely different series bolted together to make one is an abomination. It's like the Franken show. I keep it flat, Dungeon Minister. I don't change it. I do increase likelihood the further away from town a party gets, which is how you do it in the Dungeon Master's Guide. He has had issues with his writers where he has taken their work away, finished it himself, and then turned around and told people that, well, I had to do this because this person was screwing it up. I mean, he is badmouthed. He badmouthed a writer who their life was no longer going because of something they did to themselves. And he badmouthed that person. He called his writer. He made up this big drama bomb in his head where he had writers saying, you know what, you will pay me now for all the work I've done, or you're not going to get any more of the manuscripts from me, and we're stopping here. And he came out and called this the crisis of betrayal, or the betrayal crisis, or something like that, and just one-sided it. He put his wife between him and criticism over the alt games FRP PDF news group, our alt binaries RPGs, back when Usenet was still a going concern in the 90s and early 2000s. He would basically send her out there as his attack dog. He would trawl through FTP sites at universities and send legal threat letters to universities if he found stuff that he felt was Palladium's IP, including blank character sheets, I should point out, hosted on FTP sites. So that's why. That's my issue with Kevin Simbadea. It is less to do with the clunkiness of the systems, and the rules do get clunky. You know, there was this big deal about oh, you got MDC and SDC, you got standard damage and mega damage, and and never the twain shall meet. You know, you can do standard damage all day long to an armored target like a fighter jet or a tank or a warship or blah, 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 and you'll never critically damage it. And then he started introducing a bunch of handheld stuff that could do MDC. I don't mean handheld stuff like bazookas. I mean pistols. You had vampires and rifts that could like rip a Valkyrie in half with their bare hands. So I have a lot of problems with Kevin S. If he's chilled out, if he has stepped back and apologized for a lot of the way he is, good for him. I think that's good, and I think that's the right thing to do. So I hope that answers your question. I don't know that he has RRTNZ. I don't know that he has, but there you go. So one more question here. My voice is kind of starting to give. Campaigns and Conquest. I am using Len Kafka's map of Greyhawk for my campaign. Any insight into that older map? I don't really have any insight into it. I'm sorry. I will ask, if you will remind me, I will ask Rob Kuntz. We can ask Paul Stormberg about that map. But I have no really insight into it. I apologize. I feel like a bad Greyhawk guy for not knowing anything about that. You're saying Robotech. I'll sue you. Actually, he can't do anything to me about Robotech anymore because he doesn't have the rights. Not after the way he screwed the pooch. I mean, granted, it's Ninja Division. They kind of screwed up a lot too, but I mean, I have the Robotech Tactics RPG box full of miniatures there that I'll never play. I'll never use. Oh, you're quite welcome. Wave, I'll ask Paul back on. I know he's got Dragon Days coming up, but I think having Paul on before Dragon Days might be a stone groove, man. And that's good, Matt. That's good to know. That's really good to know. No, probably not. There's just a few people that I don't personally care for. I'm not going to give them airtime. I'm not inviting Frank Menser on my show ever. People have asked me if I'll do that. No, I won't. Probably not Kevin. I'm not going to sit here and fire off some enemies list at you guys. So are there any more questions, any more insight I can lend to you guys? And I will be more than happy to answer them in like the next 4 minutes. The Knights of the Invisible Horse. What a time that was. What a time that was. Who else do I not want to talk to on the show? I just said I'm not doing that. Snidely Whiplash wants to be on my show. So I'll tell you guys this in closing, unless anyone has a question they want to fire off or anything like that. I have this crushed purple wizard's hat, and I used to have it sitting over here. It was kind of sitting on the Art and Arcana thing. And for some reason, Tonka Todd, who doesn't come around much anymore, and that's a shame, said it looked like a horse. And I don't know if people were kidding or not, but sometimes people would say, yeah, I can see that it totally looks like a horse. And he'd say, you better watch out, Bill. That horse is going to bite you. It's my best Tonka Todd. And, Jimmy Invictus asked a question. Okay. You guys keep putting dimes in the jukebox and it'll keep going. So, yeah, like I was just like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. You know, okay, what was it was like the snuffleupagus of the show. And eventually I moved the hat just because I redid this. I moved the hat away and like there's nothing at a distance that looks like a horse anymore. So, Twisted Existence. Oh my God. Thank you so much. You want to keep your books, but maybe I will be able to buy some Fist editions. Fist editions. Thank you, Twisted Existence. Thank you so much. Wave of Mutilation. Love that horse like a brother. Anyway, so let's answer this question real quick. How do I... very, very simply. It's very simple. It's in the Dungeon Master's Guide. All magic users get read magic. Otherwise, they couldn't read their spell books if they needed to in a pinch, or read scrolls in a pinch. There are 3 columns. There are offensive, defensive, and utility spells. You can get... each one lists 10. On a roll of 10, the player gets to choose which one they got. Or the Dungeon Master can choose. And that's what they start with. They get a spell book with but 4 spells in it. So the acquisition of spells becomes paramount. So that is the long and short of how I handle that. Yes, the hat was crumbling. Do you guys want to see the hat? I should have been wearing the wizard's hat tonight because I was giving class, but I didn't really think about it. You meant first yearly go. That's fine. I knew you meant first. Plexiglass cut out of a horse on the background. What rules do I not use? I absolutely use encumbrance, and I absolutely use grappling. You guys have audiences who've watched me play the AD&D game know that I use grappling. Excited to play some Fist Edition D&D. That's everybody's a monk. Everybody's a monk. But no, I use encumbrance. I use grappling. I will not roll for psionics. I will not roll for psionics. However, psionic spells, there are creatures that have innate psionic abilities. Demons, devils, angels. Lots of creatures have psionic abilities. A bunch of those will not affect a party member. Psionic blast is the only attack mode that a psionic can use on a non-psionic. So you're fine. No, Fist rule of Fist edition. Nobody talks about Fist edition. The psionic powers, that is disciplines, psionic disciplines. If you'd like to be disciplined. I shouldn't have said that. It's terrible of me. Maybe there's somebody out there listening and you caught that. I don't. Anyway. Sonic disciplines function more or less like spells. Again, I leave those to NPCs that are innately listed or monsters innately listed as having sonic disciplines. If I don't use encumbrance in items like bags of holding aren't actually a treasure, every bag becomes a yeah. Fist edition AD&D. Sue Monster, Mind Flayer, Gray Ooze. That's right. Yellow Mold, look them up. I always thought it was weird that the Grell didn't have like psionic powers. Oh, it looks like a giant brain. Oh, cool. This thing ought to be psionic. Nope. Really? Fiend Folio? You weird ass people in Britain. Watch your hyphens, by the way. Weird ass people or weird ass people. Gave us the Grell and you didn't make it psionic. It's a floating tentacle brain. You are the people who supposedly brought us smart science fiction, and you just, it floats her and stings you and then eats you. You want to see what a black bag of holding looks like in a portable hole. Twisted Existence. Have you ever seen the 2014 Christopher Nolan film Interstellar? Watch the last 30 minutes. Yes, Fist Edition AD&D is now part of the lore of the Delver's Dungeon. Oh, and then you've got Sue Monsters, the Gray Ooze, the Yellow Mold, Thought Eaters, Brain Moles, Intellect Devourers, Mind Flayers, and devils and demons and divas and planetars and solars, demodans and daemons and so on and etc. No, I actually love Interstellar. I love it beginning to end. But someone was asking what would it look like if I looked in a portable hole, or if I threw a portable hole into a bag of holding or vice versa. That's what you get. I did let someone off the hook, though, once, or I suggested someone be let off the hook. My buddy Lance Havermail asked me, I'm going to tell you guys this, and then I got to go. Unless there's just a killer question to close out with. Lance asked, what happens if you take a bag of holding into the null space created by a rope trick? And I said, just for the duration that the bag is in there, it doesn't function. To quote Bones McCoy, what if they didn't go anywhere? So, a party takes a bag full of like 14,000 gold pieces up there with them. And, you look at the volume of it and it switches it off. It vomits out all the coins into the space. Maybe some of them pour out of the hole and clatter down on the ground. But now you have to spend your extra dimensional space in there pushing coins out before, you know. So anyway, I am going to call it an evening. I would like very much to thank all of you for helping out tonight with super chats, with questions and whatnot. I like the movie, okay? I like the movie. Anyway, so let's give it up, please, for North of the Rockies. Thank you very much for the super. I got a couple of supers from RRTNZ. Thank you for those. And thank you, Twisted Existence. You guys, you're literally helping keep the lights on around here. I will be back tomorrow. I will let you guys know in the windup if we're going to have a guest on tomorrow. But thank you, everyone, for chilling out with me tonight. Kyle couldn't make it, and I am so sorry. We ran out of time for Blues Traveler. Hopefully, we can get him on another show again. But please, until then, everyone, take care of yourselves, be good, and beware of the dreaded owl bears. Peace, good night, love you all.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around, some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle, way off course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just